Yeah, welcome everyone to today's webinar. I guess it's might be morning for some of you, afternoon, evening. Here it's 6 p.m. and I'm all dressed up. I know where to go. And I've got my sustainable tie on me. It's green with a little bit of dolphins on, so I thought that would be a nice theme. We planned for about 45 minutes and then 15 minutes Q&A. But I'm not sure how long it will take because I do want to go through this properly. And I've also been told that I speak too quickly, so I need to slow it down. So if it goes too quick, just let me know. And just so you know, it will be a few spelling mistakes in there that I just realized because I have reused or recycled some of my slides. So they've gone from Swedish to Danish to English to German to English. So yeah, don't judge me on the spelling. Now to start with, so my name is Sanjay. I'm a dentist. So I graduated from Malmö in 2002. In 2005, I went to the UK, to London, for a year. Ended up being about 13 years, so it was a long year for me. So I came back in 2018. I joined TP, All Hygiene Products, where I work now, in 2018, and I work for the Nordic branch, where I work mostly with education, internal and external. Quality control, so I make sure that sales and marketing don't misbehave too much. Now, how I ended up doing this lecture, because I do have 2 masters, but they have nothing to do with sustainability. It's because when I started to work at TP, I was supposed to translate a Q&A regarding sustainability. And I thought I knew everything about sustainability, and it turned out that I didn't know anything. So to translate it, I had to start to look into what everything meant, and just became bigger and bigger and bigger. So then from there, I ended up doing a few lectures about it, and I added on. And we have more educated people to hold the lecture, but I'm a dentist and I've kind of gone through this recently, so it's quite good for you to go through my journey. It might be that you know everything already, but my view was sustainability was basically recycling and waste management. That was it. I'll probably have to say that I'm going to be a bit biased because I do work for TP. TP is heavily invested in sustainability, so of course that colors the way I talk and what I talk about. I'll also mention, because it is easier for me to mention companies that I know of. It's one of our suppliers, Braskem, that works with green plastic. Also, another company called Åsing. It's a company not far from where we are in Sweden, Malmö. And they have quite the same kind of history, Åsing and TP, because both the founders started by going to the dentist and then came up with an idea. So Åsing, he was an engineer, he went to his dentist and he came up with a hygroformic suction. That's a little curly one you can see on the left-hand side. Henning Eklund, who was the founder of TP, beginning of the 60s, went to his dentist, and then from there on, he came up with the triangular wooden toothpick. And both of the companies have kind of worked from there and now has a range of different things. At the moment, TP, we have all our production in Sweden. I'm not sure about Åsing. Åsing has been sold off, so it's not privately owned anymore, but TP is. So if I do speak a lot of Åsing, TP, or Braskem, that's why. But I am going to try to keep it down. So that's my little disclaimer. We are going to talk a little bit about sustainability, what it is, climate versus environment, Carbon dioxide, I might refer to that as CO2 because for me carbon dioxide is a bit of a tongue twister. So, so CO2 or carbon dioxide. Raw materials, different kind of raw materials. And then we're going to go into the dental care, sustainability, and then how you can kind of change in the practice. Now, sustainability is a massive subject, and it's been going on for a couple of 100 years, so it's nothing new. But you can say the UN started in 72 when they had the first meeting in Stockholm. So we got about 48 years of history and knowledge, and we can't really just do that in 1 hour. So it's going to be a fraction of it, but I'll try to kind of give you an overview. I wanted to start with this. It was a colleague and a friend of mine who said this. She said in Swedish, and I had to translate it, so it sounds better in Swedish. But we believe more in our own beliefs than others' knowledge. And that's quite true, I think, with sustainability. People are quite opinionated. They hear something on social media or something on the news, and then that's the truth. And I just want to compare it with movies because I thought that was quite interesting. So when you see a movie that's based on a true story, it usually gets better reviews because it's based on a true story. And based on actual events, the same thing, doesn't say anything. Inspired by real events doesn't mean anything. It just means that if it was raining one day and I've got a rain in my movie, it's inspired by the rain. But when we see things like that, our brain kind of connects it to it must be real. This is a very good movie. And we do have a tendency, so this is the definition of fact, a thing that's known to be true, especially when it can be proved. We have a tendency of just reading the first part, a thing that's known to be true. And how many times have you heard someone say, you know, it's true, it's a fact, but is it? You know, has it been proven? So just have an open mind when I go through the presentation, because the deeper you dig into it, you'll see that it's not black and white, right and wrong. We're just going to start with a few definitions. The first one you probably heard about is greenwashing. I've looked at a few different sources. I haven't really figured out exactly what it means. Some sources say that it's basically lying, so saying that this is a product made of sustainable material, but it's not. Or, but yeah, a lie. Other sources say that it's like telling the truth, but you're not lying. So you don't tell your lies, you just tell the truth. So one of the things there can be great news. Now it contains 100% more bio-based material. So there's a spelling mistake. And that actually says nothing. You're not lying, but it doesn't say anything. So if you have 1%, then you add on another percent, then you have 100% more bio-based material. So basically, you don't lie, you do tell the truth, but you just, you don't tell any lies really, because you don't mention it. So it's almost like being in a relationship, I guess. So you don't lie, but you don't tell the whole truth. And then more examples. So it's based on recycled material. Well, how good is that? It's based on a tiny bit. How many percentage of recycled material is it? And if you take the movie theme, I mean, you could have this would be perfect for marketing. My product is inspired by real bio-based material. So you don't have to use any bio-based material. People will think it is bio-based material, but you were just inspired by it. So this is what greenwashing is. So I do think it's quite good to question and look a little bit, as I said, read between the lines a little bit. And I wouldn't be scared to ask a manufacturer or supplier, because we're all learning. So if people don't want to answer, then it's usually something dodgy going on. But otherwise, most people are quite open and they tell you what they mean and how they were thinking. And sustainability is a process. So we can't go from 1 to 100. It will be 1%, 2%, 3%, slowly build it up. We are going to have a little bit of a poll to start with. And I think it's going to come up on your screen. And this is you can vote. So I'll read it up. It's diamonds from the conflict area are ethical to buy. Yeah, so it seems like everyone thinks it's... oh, no, leave it on. Here we go. So I'm not sure if you can see. It's closed now. And it was about 16% that thinks it's ethical to buy conflict over blood diamonds, and 84% said no. I mean, I'm not going to say it's no right and wrong in that sense. But I can say that it's frowned upon, and it is considered a little bit unethical to buy blood diamonds. But so my example here can be a bit extreme, but if you buy a blood diamond, and since it's a blood diamond, you can get it for half the price. Then you take a fraction of what you saved, and you give that to UNICEF, because it's a lot of children that gets affected in these areas. That's not right, and that's what we see quite a bit with sustainability. And this is a quote. It's not about generating extra profit and then sponsoring sustainable projects. And you'll see one of the most common examples there is planting trees, which is, it's nothing wrong with planting trees, but it's the company doing it as an addition to what they're doing, then it's good. Are they doing it instead of all the things they could do, then it's bad. So you can't just take like part of your profit and give it away to a sustainable project. That is not part of sustainability. Now, sustainability, what it is, this is a definition that most of you probably read and heard. Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So what they actually mean by that is that we want to have economic growth, but at the same time, we want to protect the environment, the climate, and the people. And in dentistry, they kind of translate it into improve. We want to improve oral health, but at the same time, we want to protect the environment and the people. And this is what's called sustainable development. And this is slowly matured over the time. And you can see a few milestones here. So what I found was in 87, 92, and 2002, they basically started to lay the foundation for this. And it's what they call the 3 pillars of sustainability, or the 3 legs. And it's environment, economy, and society. And environment kind of speaks for itself. Consumption at a rate where resources can replace themselves. Economy is having access to basic things, so like food, for example, but also have the means to pay for it. So you need money and you need food. That's part of the economy. Society is other basic needs like schools, hospitals, labor laws, human rights, and so on. So all these three kind of fuse together a little bit, and they can be a little bit fussy, I thought, because I didn't think they're so clear, one starts and where the other ends. Then in 2015, they came up with something completely different. So it's the SDG index, so the Sustainable Development Goals, and that's the 17 goals that we're aiming for to resolve by 2030. And this is a bit easier to understand because it's quite clear cut, or was. Many people thought it was quite easy to understand, but we jumped on it quite quickly. So, for example, you can't put down like zero hunger just because you know that no one that works with you is hungry, because it doesn't work like that. If you have a practice and you put number 6, clean water and sanitation outside the toilet, just because you have clean water in there and sanitation, that's a no-go. You have to go in, and they do have like sub-goals. There's quite a few of them in each category. So it can be anything between 10, 15, 17 goals. So go in and read a little bit there, and you'll see more what we're trying to strive towards. So it's quite a few to read. I mean, it depends a little bit where you read, but it's anything between 170 to just over 200. So it's some nice bedtime reading. Now, the one that affects us, I would say, I'm just bringing this up because it irritates me quite a bit, is number 3, good health and well-being. And all of this it's really nice, we want to battle tuberculosis, HIV, measles, malaria, and all. I mean, it's really, really good. But when you read all these sub-goals, I don't see dentistry there or the oral health there at all. And you can maybe, wing a couple of them. But I feel like oral health is quite important for this goal. And also indirectly, we know that it actually does affect, heart, diabetes, and quite a few other diseases. So I think they need to put in a little bit more about the oral health and how it connects to their general health. But we'll see. I don't work for the UN, so it might not happen. Now, so this was presented, 2018 was the first time it was presented. And it's the first time you could do like an index and ranking, and you can see Sweden was number 1, Denmark, Finland. So everyone was doing quite well. But it's also the first time they realized that we're not going to be able to achieve the goals. And Sweden, for example, and Denmark and Finland as well, sustainable consumption and production, I can understand. But when it came to climate action, that we're actually quite behind on that part. If we are behind, how's the rest of the world? And that's kind of I think was quite shocking. Then 2019, the Danes went up to number 1, but it's not a competition. But 2020, we're going to go to number 1 again. But this is the new report, and you can go in and look at the dashboard. And this is just one of the pages, and I've kind of copied and pasted and cut it down and just used Sweden. And I thought it's quite interesting when you read it. But you look at the top part where you see green, yellow, for example. So that means how far have you come. So if it's green, you've achieved it, and then it kind of goes down. If you're red, then you're definitely far away. And also then the progress, so decreasing, is it on track, and so on. And I mean, I was quite shocked when I saw zero hunger, that we still have challenges, no significant challenges. I had no idea. Same thing with education. And you can see major changes remaining: consumption, production, and climate action. So So go in, have a look at your country. You got the reference down there, but I'll make sure you get all the references. So if you want to go in, have a little look. There we go. Then also in 2015, it was the Paris Agreement. And this has, we talked a lot about last year. I mean, this year is mostly Corona on the news, but last year was a lot about the Paris Agreement. And they talked about unite behind the science and science-based targets. There's quite a few things there, but what they basically said was that they've calculated that we cannot get our temperature, the global temperature, above 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial temperatures. And that's from 1850 to 1900. The temperature we had there, that's the baseline. And we can't go 2 degrees above there. But I'll come back to this in a little bit. And they also said that it's time for us to actually do what's, not what's easy anymore, or what our shareholders or what customers want to have. We should change the things that actually makes impact. And I've got quite a few examples, but I'm not going to bring them up because it's a few different other companies. It's not within dental, but it's not very nice. But I can take one from our company where we were asked if we could take old toothbrushes, recycle them, make a new one, which sounds like a great idea. But when you look at it, the energy that you would spend to recycle these toothbrushes into a new toothbrush was very, very high. So actually the emission would be much higher than just use normal plastic. But from a sales point of view, if you did that, you probably would sell that toothbrush because it's recycled, but it's not good for the environment. So things like that, that would be a bit of greenwashing, to be honest. But so it's more about doing the right things for the environment or the climate instead of the customers. Now, so they've looked at where we are. So I said the baseline is 1850 to 1900. 2017, we were 1 degree. They want to stop it on 1.5 because whatever happens, it will continue and then it will go down. So we'll probably touch and go around 2. So if you look at this, it's not looking very good. Already 2040, we will hit it. So this is one of the things they talked quite a lot about. So if we went up to 2 degrees, what would happen is that the climate would change completely. We'll have more droughts, we'll have more extreme temperatures, less water ability, heavy rains, for example. 18% of our plants in the world would die off, they calculate. 16% of the insects, maybe not a bad idea if it's the mosquitoes, but 16%, so it's quite a few. And 8% of animals that has a spine. It could wipe out all coral reefs. So it's quite a big change. So just that degree over a long time will have a lot of effect on the world. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to basically, I'm going to talk mostly about the climate now. So this is the little fraction we're going to talk about. And so I'm not going to talk a lot about, zero hunger or social responsibility. There'll be a few things like that coming in. But this is what we're going to concentrate on. This is our company. Now, this is Swedish, Finnish, of course, so you're not going to be able to read it. But this is one of the products we have. It's called the Good toothbrush. So this is TP Good. And when we started to market it, this is the Nordic way to market it. you're not allowed to say that it's environmental friendly because it's not. So you could say that it's environmental friendlier because there's very few products that are environmental friendly. So we started to use a expression that is environmental clever. Doesn't sound very good in English at all, but in Swedish it's a bit better. And then we started to think, actually, our toothbrush, what it does, it recycles the carbon dioxide. 95% of it, it recycles. So that has nothing to do, more or less nothing to do with the environment. We're talking about the climate now. So we went from environment, actually started to talk about climate. So it's a climate clever toothbrush. And it is a bit difference between climate and environment. So environment is your surroundings. Climate is basically weather measured over a long period of time. So the weather is a specific point, like what is the weather like now in a specific place, so in Malmö, so the sun is shining. How was the weather 1 o'clock in Paris? So that's the weather. But then you can measure the climate in Paris over a year's time. So it's over a long period of time. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go back a little bit to basic, but I'm just going to show you a case. It's a case study. This is from from our supplier, Braskem. So they've done a case study, and what's interesting here is that we easily look at wood as something that's climate friendly, good for the environment. You know, wood is always better than plastic. But here they've used plastic pallets compared to wooden pallets. And a plastic pallet you can use more times. For the climate itself, it was basically the same. When it came to inhalable particles, you can see that a wooden pallet is much worse for the environment of the worker, and that's part of sustainability. We can see that the water use looked like it was the same, but the soil use is 19 times higher when you use a wooden pallet. So you need much more land to create these. And this is something you probably wouldn't expect when you look at it. So here is an example where actually plastic is better than wood. This is more the sustainable product. And so that's why you kind of have to start to think in a different way when it comes to sustainability. So we're just going to bring it back to basic. Most of you probably know this, or all of you know this, but it's more for my own sake then. What happens is we breathe in oxygen, and what comes out is CO2, carbon dioxide. This is basically the plant's oxygen. So they take this in together with the solar energy and water. They create glucose, so their energy, so they can grow. And their byproduct, the one they don't want to have, is oxygen. So we take the oxygen, and our byproduct is CO2. So this is how it was supposed to work. So it just went round and round. And now we talk a lot about the footprint. So the carbon footprint. That's the total greenhouse gas emissions. So it's not only CO2. There are a few more. I'll show you and talk you through a few more. But this is all the gases you emit when you do different activities. So for example, if you drive to work, your footprint will be higher than if you walk to work. Simple. So this is how it's supposed to work, or it did work. We do need the greenhouse gases because they will be in the atmosphere, and they're there, and because of the gravity will hold them into place. So the sun rays will go in, they will bounce off Earth, and then it will go back. But some of these will stay inside because of the greenhouse gases. And we need that to heat up our planet. Otherwise, it'd be way, way too cold, and you wouldn't be able to survive. So we want to have some green gas emission up there. But what we've done is we've taken it to a completely different level, where we just pumped out. So we have the rays coming in, and they can't get out. And what we've also done is we've kind of started to destroy the ozone layer. So we're letting more rays coming in, and we're letting less rays coming out. So one of the ways to emit carbon dioxide is basically when a plant dies, all the carbon dioxide that's gone in will come out. So that's considered natural. If we burn things, well, it will release the carbon dioxide that's inside. Now, when we talk about carbon dioxide, they talk about something called GWP, so that's the global warming potential. And this kind of says how bad it is. And you have carbon dioxide that's 1, and then basically from there on, you look at it. And the good old Freon we used in fridges before was 7,350 times worse for the climate than carbon dioxide was. And we have another one that's quite common. It's the methane gas, and you can see where that comes from. It's 25 times worse. It doesn't stay in the atmosphere that long, only stays for about 8 years. But the problem with it is then it transforms into CO2 and water. So it just adds on. And this is how it works. So that's why we're so scared about carbon dioxide. We need to lower the levels, because otherwise we're going to have too much sun rays inside the atmosphere. One of the things that's happening, and they've calculated, they've said between 20 to 30% of all the carbon dioxide has been taken up by the world seas since 1980s, which you would think is a good thing. So it's kind of taking care of it for us. But what happens with the sea or water is the end product is limestone and acid. So that's why our one of the reasons our oceans are starting to get acidic is because of all the carbon dioxide. So it affects on 2 levels. So it's above land and in the water as well. Now, so we have talked a little bit about, I'm just going to summarize a quick summary. We talked a little bit about different definitions like greenwashing. We've talked about the 3 legs or 3 pillars of sustainable development, the new 17 goals, and kind of how to look at them and go into the sub-goals. We talked about the Paris Agreement and the temperature, and we've gone through the greenhouse gas, another one that's quite hard, greenhouse gas. How it works, why we need it, but why we don't need too much. So the next section, I want to talk a little bit about raw material. And it's quite simple. It's divided into renewable, we talk about, and non-renewable resources and raw material. So renewable resources, examples is organic material, wind, water, sun. Non-renewable is oil or gas, natural gas, because that takes like 1 million years to generate, and we're consuming them quite quick. But just because something is renewable doesn't mean that it's sustainable. And I think that's one thing that we need to I think it's quite important to understand. just because you have a renewable resource like wood or trees doesn't mean that it's sustainable, because if you chop all the trees down, then it will take a long time for them to come back. So then it's not sustainable anymore. So renewable and sustainable is not the same thing. But the material can be renewable and unsustainable, and the other way around. Now, I'm going to talk about 4 different materials, and it's just because it's way more out there. But these I know a little bit about, luckily. And it might be, I've been told that it might be a little bit too advanced, but I thought I'll just try to talk you through it as good as I can. But we're going to start with a little bit of a poll first, see what you think. So, what of the following raw materials do you consider the most sustainable? Okay. Yeah, I think we're done voting here, or maybe not. There we go. So poor oil got a real bashing. It wasn't very nice. But I'll just talk you through, and you can see if, I mean, this is just an opinion, so it's nothing that's right or wrong. But we'll start with oil, because when I started to work with plastic, I just knew that plastic comes from oil. But, it was quite a big gap in my knowledge between this, because oil just doesn't become plastic just like that. So oil is quite interesting. It's called crude oil. So when you pump up oil, actually you can have quite a few different things in that oil. You can have petrol, for example. You can have diesel. You can have jet fuel. So it's just depending on what's in that crude oil. So I've actually made myself a little bit of petrol. I bought some petrol here. So I made it myself, and I'm quite proud. But this is basically how it looks. It's just a bunch of carbon and hydrogen. And depending on how long it is, it's a different material. When you create plastic, you use something called naphtha. I don't know have the chemical structure for it, but it's more or less like this and some other things thrown in. And then you take this molecule, it's super simple, and you do something called cracking. So you basically crack it into pieces. So if I chop it up there, and there, I've got one ready. It's almost like a cooking show. I would get a molecule that looks like this. And this is this is ethylene. And if I took 2 of these, put them together, it's polyethylene, and then you have plastic. But if I chopped it so it was a bit longer, you would have a completely different kind of plastic. And I find that very, very interesting, and we're going to come back to that a little bit more. But the problem we have with oil is they estimate if we continue using it in this rate, the crude oil, we will deplete all our resources within 75 years. We'll be gone. And we know that we can't wait another million years to get new oil. So that's why we have a problem with oil. But otherwise, we have a fantastic product. Plastic is actually quite good. The problem we have with plastic is we don't recycle it properly, and we do have a tendency of throwing it where it shouldn't be. So it's more we are the problem. Plastic is not the problem. Another resource is wood. And this one has quite a good reputation. You know, wood is the solution for everything. But when you look at trees, it depends what country you're in. But in Sweden, for example, by law, you can't harvest it for 45 years, 45 to 60 years, depending on what kind of tree it is. Sometimes we wait 100 years. So what we need to look at is when we use a tree, what do we use it for? So if I take that tree that's 100 years old and I use it for a week to heat up my house, I just burn it, I release 100 years of carbon dioxide in a week. So I think the same thing, if we use it for quite a lot of paper, and paper disappears quite quickly. If you use it for a house, then you got a different story. If you use it for flooring, different story. Then you have something that lasts longer. So good material, but it's not the solution. And I found it very interesting when you looked at the fires in Australia. I feel very sorry for them. Big catastrophe, but they spoke quite a bit that the climate change might be the reason for this. But if you look at all the trees that was burnt down, it was the size of California. It's larger than California. Just imagine how much trees and how much carbon dioxide that was pushed out into the atmosphere. And just imagine how long it will take for new trees to take it in. So we're probably talking about 50, 60, 70 years before we're back. So it's kind of a visual circus there. Circle, not a circus, a circle. So just think about how we use our different raw materials. Then we have bamboo. Bamboo, everyone talks about bamboo. Bamboo is a fantastic material. Depends what you read. I didn't really get too wised up on it, but bamboo takes about 6 years before you can harvest it and use it. So if you use bamboo to do paper, for example, it would probably be a better product if you could, and it would probably be a better product than normal wood. We use it quite a lot for flooring. That's one of the biggest thing we use it for, and that's actually quite a good thing because floors are quite sustainable. They're nice to look at, and you have it for 15, 20, 30 years, but bamboo only takes 6 years to mature. So it stores a lot of carbon dioxide, which is very good. Then we're going to go to sugar canes. And this I find is very, very interesting because from sugar cane, you'll transform that into plastic. And I'm going to show you how. Well, not exactly how, but I'll do my best to explain it. But first of all, the plastic we look at. So you probably heard the expressions bio-based plastic. You probably heard the expressions non-biodegradable and biodegradable. But so you divide it up to bio-based, so that means that it comes from plants or another renewable products, or it can be fossil-based, so basically oil or gas. And you can have a product that's non-biodegradable and biodegradable. Now, biodegradable doesn't mean that you can take it, throw it in nature, and it will break. It will break down, but it'll take a long time. So I think they talk about 40, 50 years before it breaks down. Biodegradable has to go to a certain plant where they use certain bacteria and a certain pH, and that will break it down. So you have to respect whatever material you decide to use. You have to respect the end of life. So where should you put it? You never ever put whatever it is goes in the nature. You always recycle it, put it where you're supposed to put it. Now, when it comes to sugar canes and plastic, it's polyethylene, it's called. So it's bio-based, but it's not biodegradable. So it's up on the left-hand side. And how they make it, I find it's very interesting. So they crush the plant first, and you get sugar syrup. You take about half of their blast, you put it back on the field as fertilizer. You remove the actual sugar so they can sell the sugar, so you got something else to sell from it. And then they produce alcohol from it. So you let it ferment, you get alcohol, and then you dehydrate it and you add on some energy, and you get plastic. And now I made another one. It looks like a dog, but it's not. This is alcohol. This is ethanol. I didn't have any red ones. This is oxygen. But this is how it looks. And all they do is they put this into a process. I'm not sure exactly how it is. And they separate these two. Oh. I haven't done this before, so that's fine. So you end up with H2O, so water. And this is an ethylene molecule. And then they basically just put them together and you get polyethylene, which is plastic. And this is why I find it quite easy when you look at it like this, because it's so, it's not many components, but it's all depending on how you put them together. So it's all chemistry. And what they try to do is when they try to cut it up, we use a lot of energy. And it's that energy that we want to avoid. And they do that by using the rest of the blast. So you actually don't use any additional energy. And so you get ethylene, and then you pair them together, and you got polyethylene. I do more things during the days than do these. And it looks like this. So this is actually plastic polyethylene that comes from sugar cane. And it's so efficient. So if you take a piece of land, so 100 times 100 meters, so I reckon that would be 110 yards times 110 yards. Every year, because you can harvest it every year, we can, in theory, do 235,000 regular sized toothbrushes from 1 hectare of land a year. And I find that quite impressive. So when you look at all these materials, so when you start to read about them and you start to think a little bit about which one is the best one, we can't just survive on one, because that's the whole thing about sustainability. We need oil. We need the oil at the moment because we need to do plastic that is hygienic, that we can keep sterile. We do need to use wood, bamboo, sugarcane. So it's not one that's the solution. It's all of them, and it's so many more materials they work with. So I think, have a look at my notes. We kind of come all the way, so we can talk a little bit of dentistry. But we've talked about the different materials, renewable, non-renewable. And then I've gone through a few of the raw materials. I hope I didn't confuse you with my toys. But let's go into dentistry. But we're just going to do a little bit of a poll and see what you think when it comes to Christmas trees. So do you think a traditional Christmas tree, plastic, or wooden Christmas tree is the most sustainable? Okay, and there you see, I don't know the answer to this one because it's no one's calculated. My guess would be a plastic Christmas tree, depending on how many years you use it. Traditional one is I found it quite mean towards that poor Christmas tree, but they're usually between 6 and 8 years old, and then we kind of sacrifice them for like 10 days of Christmas. So, and then it takes another 6 to 8 years to kind of get all that carbon dioxide in there. So certain things are of course better if you can use it over and over and over again. Now, dentistry. I'm just showing you this because so you can see that we do need oil-based material because it is about hygiene. And just looking at this photo, you can kind of see everything that comes from oil in one way or another. So we don't need to replace the plastic. We just need a better plastic, you could say. Because we're not going to be able to replace all this with bamboo and wooden. I mean, who wants to have a bamboo filling? It sounds a bit funny, but seriously, I mean, the patience is our prime concern. So we keep the quality. And it is this, the medical students learn, and we in dental as well. First, do no harm. So that keep that in the back of your mind when you think about sustainability in your practice and when you want to change. Will it affect the patient and the patient care, and especially cross-infection? If it does that, just do no. Don't change it. But we've all seen this. Anyone that worked in a surgery, and it's piles and piles of it. And it's shown that what we use the most is actually gloves, because we keep on changing them for no reason. And these are the things that we can we replace them with something that's more sustainable. So I'm just going to show you another one of these case studies. I just thought it was quite interesting, where they use a disposable plastic cup, and if you use the reusable cup, and bear in mind this is just for drinking, it's not for the surgery. But if the water use will be 9 times as much if you use a mechanical wash, 46 times if it's hand washing, and in the practice it has to go through the autoclave as well, so it's a lot of energy that goes, a lot of water. Now, it does look like, it depends how you look at it, but the climate, of course, the plastic will be affect the climate more, they calculated, but there are advantages with disposable as well. So don't forget disposable, because sometimes they are better. So I'm going to show you a few disposable options, but I just wanted to say first that it's something called carbon handprint. It's much more positive than carbon footprint. It's all the good things you do. And I think that's where you want to start in the practice. Don't look at all the bad things you do. It's just going to make you depressed. Look at all the good things you're doing in the practice. And you'll find that you're doing more things than you think. And also, don't be shy. Tell people what you're doing. And maybe have like a suggestion. They can write their suggestions in the practice what you can do. But tell them what you're doing, because most of it they can't see. And there might be a lot of good things you're doing, sustainable options. So it's a few choices. I'll go through we have a video as well, but this is all things. First of all, a bamboo cup, disposable, quite brilliant. You use the fibers, and you get paper more or less cup. And don't know, but surely must be much better than plastic. They use polyethylene for their aspirator tubes, and that's the same thing we use in our toothbrushes. So this is the one that comes from sugar canes. So very good material. This is what made them famous. So this is like a little bendable suction, and it's quite common in Scandinavia, but it seems like no one else really understands it. So they made a little movie and they sent it over to show me. And this is sugarcane based as well. So I'll show you the little movie. It's nice little music as well. And you don't have to listen to me for a while. There you can see how it works. It goes on the inside, and it's quite a clever little product, just functionally, and it will kind of keep the tongue out of the way as well. You can look a little bit uncomfortable, but it's actually quite comfortable, and most people, especially if you work in the lower, then they'll be numbed out. And it's powerful. Now, so that's it's a very good product. Try it if you have the chance. It's much easier to keep clean. We're coming up to an hour, so I'll speed up a little bit. Other things you can do, other solutions in the practice is, of course, going more and more digital, paper-free. Actually, computers, they don't use a lot of energy. I thought it would be plus minus, but they don't use a lot of energy. You can start to use a kind of iPad so they can do medical history. They go straight in. Make sure you email treatment plans straight to the patients. Instruction, post-op instructions, for example. One of the things you can have a little think about, if you're thinking about maybe not getting a oral scanner, so for the impressions, I think it's probably a fantastic idea when it comes to sustainability. Because by doing that, we get rid of all those silicone impressions. And you can just imagine how many impressions we take every year. And it's a material we can't reuse. We can't recycle it. So by getting in, it is a big investment, but it is quite good. But if you do this, don't just say to your patients that, oh, I got a scanning intraoral scanner. Just explain why you got it as well, because it's quite good for the patients to know. And with the patients, you can, of course, you can recommend or sell sustainable products, and we've got quite a few, so I'll talk about them, of course. So toothbrush, functional, very good. It's our TP good, but this one is from sugarcane as well. At our factory, we use solar power. So during the summers, because we're in Sweden, we only use that energy to do our toothbrushes, all our toothbrushes. But then the rest of the year, we buy green energy. And what's clever about this, right, I might not have mentioned before, and same thing with the different suctions, is that it recycles the carbon dioxide. So the sugarcane is extremely efficient in recycling. So it's 95%. And where we lose the 5% is transportation. But year by year, I think that's going to go down because we're going to use more and more green energy for cars and so on. And our little family, it's quite a tricky material to work with. So we've got a little family now. So we got a toothbrush, tongue cleaner, and our little mini flosser, so preloaded floss. And that's what I meant. You have to take it step by step. You can't just turn the ship in one go. So it's step by step, and you find what works for you in the practice or as a company. And now another thing you can do, it's called green and ethical procurement. So one of the things you have to look at, so what they say is you're supposed to look at the life cycle of a product, and the one that does minimum impact or less impact, that's the one you should pick. But I do think you have to look at the time you can use it, safety, hygiene as well. Just a few things like that. But you can go back. So what you have to do when you look at a product, you have to go all the way from the beginning. So you basically start where, in our case, where you harvest it, is that good working condition, minimum pay, no child labor, how's the factory, and so on. And then the material will come to us, and we have to look at the same things. Then it goes to the consumer, and then their responsibility is to put it in the right bin, more or less. So everyone has a little bit of responsibility in this chain. But it has to, when you measure, it has to be from the beginning, from start to finish. Another thing you should look at with procurement is definitely how much you buy in stock. Because I remember when I worked, it was so much material we chucked away because you had this buy 3, pay for 2 kind of thing, and then you bought too many and you chucked quite a few. So that's another thing you can think about in the surgery. You can also, if you find it hard to get going in surgery, pick manufacturers that actually work with sustainability, and you'll see most of us will have the 17 goals. But you'll probably see that with time they disappear. So now it's just 6, and then suddenly someone is just working on 2. That's not a bad sign, it's a good sign. It means that they actually gone in, looked at the sub goals, realized I can do impact here, here, and here. And so look and talk to them. And also you can push them a bit. Even if you like them and you're going to use them in the future, maybe ask them, aren't you using any more green products? And, sooner or later they will go down that road as well. Now, how do you change it in the practice then? So this is something they call change management. I'm not going to go through the theory all the way, but basically what they say is it creates a sense of urgency. So if we don't do this, something bad is going to happen. But they do that quite often in companies. They go in and say, if we don't change what we're doing, we will, you're all going to lose your jobs. So we have to change it. And they say it's like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 will be positive, 1/3 will be on the fence, and 1/3 will be negative. And that third you can't change anyway. Big companies usually just fire those. I'm not giving you any ideas to fire a third of the people working for you. I'm just saying that if you only get 2/3 on board, it's fine. You've done a good job. Young people when it comes to sustainability, they want to change the world, especially the people who's work has born the millennium, while older people showed that they don't really care when we've done our surveys. So maybe pick someone that's a bit younger to lead this change. Give them the access to change in the practice. That's quite important. So you don't have the veto. So you say no to all the things they come up with. You do need training, guiding, and the more you do, the less you have to do down the line. And then it's important to have a vision. What do you want to do? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? And you put a timeline, you set goals, and you try to work after those. And don't stress about it. Every little step counts. And this is quite common in the UK. They say reuse, recycle, or reduce. Print that, put it up, because it's actually excellent. If you can reuse it, you reuse it. Recycle it, you recycle it, and reduce your waste. There's something called upcycling as well, where you actually take a product and use it for something that it wasn't intended to be used for. So that's another thing. So don't throw things out, give them to charity, but especially think about the reduction, because that's going to save you money. Now, when we talk about, this is an article series by Brett, what's his name? Sorry, Brett Dwayne, my bad. He's got like 6 or 7 articles, very good, but they've calculated in the UK, and it's actually travel that stands for 65% of all the emissions. So travel for patients and staff. So it's quite a big part there that we have to go in and try to at least change. Maybe book appointments, check up, and hygienists at the same time. Whole families at the same time, so it's only one visit they have to do. If you have a lab within the city, you can use maybe bike messengers instead to send you lab work and things like that. Number 2 was procurement, and then about 15% was energy in the practice. And there's sterilization takes a lot of energy, and it's quite hard to cut that down. Now, these are from the same article series. I found them quite useful because they're quite like a little bit funny, but they at the same time they show it quite clear. So the first one, is it easy to implement? Second one, is it expensive? Can we save some money? And then what kind of impact it has. So you don't have to do all of them, but maybe just brainstorm, put it down, and then you realize actually this one is pointless, this one is pointless, this one's really good, and you pick 1, 2, 3 that you can work with. And it was also on the right hand side. I thought that one you can take with you home, and then you can use that at home instead. Avoid pesticide, create a green roof or wall, so you can do a few things at home as well. Inspire your staff. Now, we're basically done. I just want to do one more thing. So we're just going to do one more poll and then almost done. Sorry that I'm keeping you up this late. So do you think the corona crisis will have a positive effect on the climate? So about 77% thinks it's going to have a positive effect, and 23% are non-believers. So you know it's almost like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So I got this one from a friend. I thought it was really funny, but I'm not sure if you can think it's that funny. But I'll show you this one anyway. But so people of the world, so that's us. There's no chance we can shut everything down in order to lower emissions, slow climate change, and protect the environment. So Mother Nature says, hold my beer. And this is what happened. We could shut everything down without a problem. Well, I shouldn't say without a problem, but we can do it if we want to. But is this sustainability? And this is what they fear within the UN. It's going to have a lot of impact on a lot of people. It's also the positive changes we see now. They think it's going to disappear quite quickly, because once we get producing again, we're going to overproduce. We've also got heaps of waste from the hospitals at the moment. So that's going to become landfill, or maybe we incinerate them. So it's quite a few things that it's going to affect it afterwards. So what I think is important is just take all the positive things that's come out of it and maybe use that, like having different meetings, using the internet instead of traveling. And it's quite a few things. So just have a look at what the positive things you could see from this crisis, and then that's where you can use. Now this is all it. So we have gone through a little bit the definitions of sustainability, and the difference between climate and environment. And there's my little cow. So a greenhouse gas, and especially carbon dioxide. Different raw materials and what we can use in the practice, and just a little bit about change, how to start the change in the practice. And I'm sorry it took a little bit longer than I thought, but thank you for listening, and I think we're going to go over to questions. Okay, so we'll start with first question. What is the material used for TP's eco-friendly toothbrushes? So yeah, it's based on sugarcane. So that's I think that was answered. And what do you think about glove recycling? They use it to composting in the USA. How do you mean glove? You mean using the gloves many times? Because I really don't. It's from Clara. I don't understand the question really, because if it's using the gloves many times, that's a big no. But I think you mean something else. On the toothbrushes, do you recommend replacing them every 3 months? Yeah, every 3 months. We've had a look at ours, and after about 3 months, even the sustainable ones are ready to be changed. So the wear is the same as our other ones. Are there any natural powered toothbrush options? I don't know all the toothbrushes in the world, but I'm going to say no. I doubt that it's actually anything that is powered, because as soon as you add on energy, you wouldn't be able to kind of keep it natural anymore. Next one, is there any research on toothpaste containers using these types of products to be used for suction tips and toothbrushes? I actually don't know, and I think that's a no. I'm pretty sure it's not. That would be quite a good idea to, because we use a lot of toothpaste, and especially the small ones. It's a lot of plastic there, so if you can use a good plastic, that would make a big difference. How would you explain in a much easier words to a patient to use it for sustainability? You mean that, yeah, so you mean, well, this is a thing that I speak quite a lot with the students about. It is very hard to go into a conversation with patients about sustainability. You will have different kind of patients. You will have one kind of patient that they'll just do whatever you tell them. So you just tell them to use that product because you know it's a green product. But you will have the people who's going to go into an argument with you, and we don't have time in the clinical environment to have those discussions, because they take too long. And you can see I went over half an hour already, and we don't have the time. So it is very hard to talk to patients. You can use words like that, like I did. They recycle 95% of the carbon dioxide. If you say that this is based on sugarcane, this is based on bamboo, it's usually quite a good argument for them. So they're quite happy then with things like that. So that's all the advice I actually can give you at the moment. Then can you send us some samples to try? Of course I can. But I'm not sure. We can probably organize something like that. It depends where you live. And that seems like all the questions. So I just have to say, I'll thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention. And I hope I didn't ruin your evening plans or morning plans or afternoon plans. Thank you. Oh, how do we get our CE units? Okay. I think the questions will come now, and then it will be sent out. I'm not sure how it works, but I think the technical side of the app will organize all of this. So I think you got about 4 or 6 questions. Thank you.